please remember to share, subscribe, and all that fun stuff, okay? Hi, kitty cats! So, as you can see, I'm wearing my costume because it is Halloween. This is sort of a scarecrow doll thing. This wig is not what I thought it would be. I thought it would be really easy to like bunch it up and make like a little pony, you know, little things. It didn't work. So it's just like this instead. Today we're gonna have a little chit chat about ghost stories. Some of you said that you wanted to hear my ghost stories. So I'm gonna give you just that. So, first off, I've got a couple stories that I'm gonna tell, and the first one has to do with me being a little kid. Now, everybody has like their, you know, make-believe friend. Well, not everybody, but there's a lot of kids that have make-believe friends, and I had one called Benji, and I was always talking to Benji and playing with Benji, and Benji. Everything was about Benji, you know, had to have an extra sandwich for Benji, all that sort of stuff. And my dad really didn't like it. He was totally against it. And eventually I stopped talking to Benji, mostly because my dad really was like, you're too old to have an imaginary friend, that sort of thing. I don't remember what age I was at that he kept pursuing, you know, me not having Benji anymore, but that was like kind of a thing. So years later, when I was a teenager, we had this crawl space, like from the closets. It was a Cape style house, and there were 2 bedrooms and a bathroom in the middle of the upstairs. And in each of the closets, there was like crawl space to go into the, like the eaves, as my family said, which was like the attic. And so when I was a teenager, I actually kind of liked to just go back there and sit in the attic, which is really kind of creepy, but that's what I liked to do. And I guess I was kind of creepy. And I would go back there and just sit. I had like a flashlight and I would read back there, and I just wanted to be away from everything. And I started going back there, and I started feeling like there was somebody there all the time, and I was always looking around trying to figure that out, and there was nobody there. And then one day, I swear I heard somebody talking to me, and in my head I kept like envisioning like Ben, just the name Ben. And so I started like being like Ben and Ben this and Ben that. I was like, and I started saying to myself, well, I guess there's a ghost in the attic named Ben. By the way, the house that I lived in was not like a super old house. My parents had it built for them, like during like the 1960s. I think during the 1960s. A lot of my brothers and sisters were a lot older than me. I was kind of like an extra thing that came along later on. Me and one of my sisters, we were like something that wasn't really supposed to happen, but we did, and so there it was. I never had my parents say that I was an accident or anything like that. Sorry, my throat is like super dry today, just like my skin from doing all this makeup all month long. So, as I was saying, I talked to Ben all the time. Then my parents decided, because my sister had moved out, that I should go into her old room, which was on the other side. Now on that side it was the crawl space, which was smaller, so I didn't go in it. But oftentimes when I was in there, and I had a teenage friend back then, we'll call her Donna, and Donna, she would come over and the door would like shut, like right behind her when she walked out of the room. And other weird things would happen, like she'd sit down and something nearby her would just get knocked over, and all this stuff kept happening, and she was like freaking out, and I was like, oh, it's probably just Ben. And that is what I had come to, was that I had a ghost named Ben that hung around me. And Ben really didn't like her, probably for a good reason. She was not a good friend, which I found out years later. So I think Ben was trying to tell me something. Where Ben came from, no one knows. But there was a day where I mentioned to my sister that I had this ghost named Ben, and she was just like, well, when you were little, your imaginary friend was Benji. And I was like, oh, you're right. Like, how weird is that? And then I connected all that, and I was like, I didn't have imaginary friends. I had a ghost. And like I said, nobody knows where that ghost came from. They really don't. And there isn't much more to tell to the story. I mean, we tried to figure that out, but we weren't on like Indian burial ground. There was nothing like that going on. Nobody had died in the house because the house was built for us. So not quite sure where Ben came from. He could have been from an object that was in the house, something that my parents had bought maybe at a thrift store. We don't know. We have no idea. It could have been something that I, just had, a toy maybe that had been passed down to me. Who knows where Ben came from? But when I moved out, Ben was gone. So that's one story. I actually have, I think, more than one story that I'm going to tell. The second story is one that I just been telling actually a lot recently. And it is about my grandmother. Now, my grandmother passed away when I was a teenager. And she was very, very stern woman. Like, stern and disciplined and very, you stick your pinky up when you're drinking your tea type of lady. And she belonged to the Eastern Star, which is a group that is a pretty solid group of women. What is it? Oh my gosh. My brain just fell out. I just forgot the male equivalent of the group, which is much more well known, and I can't think of it. If you know what I'm talking about, comment down below. Because my brain just it just floated out of my head. Excuse me. Oh, that's getting cut out. So anyways, my grandmother was this very stern lady who loved the color pink. Everything in her house was pink. Pink, pink, pink. She loved pink. She also made amazing deviled ham sandwiches. But anyhow, she passed away. She had a couple strokes and passed away when I was a teenager. Maybe a little bit more like a tween age. And years later, my brother ended up buying her house from my mother. I don't know what that was about. Probably a cat. So that happened, and playing with this wig. I'm sorry, I'm very scatterbrained today. I'm sorry about that. So my brother bought the house, and my brother didn't hang about with the best people and stuff. And he had one of his friends was drunk, probably high, who knows what. And my brother said, you can spend the night at my house. And so he told him, you can stay in this room. That room happened to be my grandmother's room. And it was still my grandmother's bed, which I find really creepy that nobody had gotten rid of the bed or the mattress or anything. It was all the same. So anyways, and it was made and all that. And my brother had chosen to live in the other room instead of my grandmother's room. And so this guy was sleeping in my grandmother's bed, and he woke up once and he felt like somebody was looking at him, but he thought, well, I'm drunk, whatever. So he went back to sleep. Then he woke up a second time because he felt like somebody was pushing on the mattress, lifting it up, and looked around again. There's nobody there. Went back to sleep. So third time he wakes up, he felt like somebody was looking at him, and he also felt and this woman's face was like right in his face and said, "Get out." And he flipped out. He like got up, he ran screaming out of the room, woke up my brother. My brother's like, "What's going on?" And he tells my brother the story. And my brother is like, "Well, what did she look like?" And he's like, "She was tall and she had like this fluffy white hair and she was wearing a pink dress with flowers on it." And my brother was like, "Hold on." And my brother went in to like the basement and got a picture of my grandmother, who was in her favorite dress, which she was buried in, like, which was this pink dress with flowers on it. He showed her the picture of my grandmother, and the guy freaked out. He absolutely freaked out. He was like, "That's her, blah, blah, blah." And my brother was just like, "Okay, that's my grandmother. Like, my grandmother doesn't want you here." And the guy was like, "I'm leaving." And my brother was like, "It's like, 3 o'clock in the morning, wherever, you can't go." And he was like, "Forget it." He was like, "I don't care if I have to walk home, whatever. I can't be here." So the guy left. And that's one of the incidences of my grandmother. My other brother actually saw her as well. When he went into the house, he would sometimes see her walking through the house. I don't believe she ever spoke to him, but he would see her like out of the corner of his eye. He would see her like walking or doing other things. She usually showed up around people when she was unhappy about something. Like, I went there once and my brother gave me a box of condoms, and I saw her, and I looked up, saw her in the doorway to the living room, and I was just like, "Get over it, Grandma." And my brother was like, "Did you see her?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so neither me or my other brother liked to go to that house because of that. We were just like, yeah, we prefer not to deal with her. I also once saw a medium, and she was doing, the usual medium stuff and talking. It was one of those gallery mediums where there's like a whole bunch of people in the room, and she calls, out to somebody. She points out to somebody, and she's like, "I have somebody who wants to," then their name starts with blah. However, in this case, she turned to me and she was like, "There's a woman standing right behind you." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, she's very tall and she has white fluffy hair and the whole thing, the dress, everything. And she said, she's not telling me her name though. And I was like, "Oh, I know who it is." And I was like, and she was like, "She wants you to know that she loves you despite everything." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds like my grandmother." Like, "I love you, but you're messed up," kind of thing. So I didn't always have the best relationship with her, even though I was like her namesake. So there was that. So there's that story there. So yeah, my grandmother was around a lot. And I've never been like creeped out by ghosts. Like, I see a lot of people tell ghost stories on YouTube, and the whole time they're like, "Oh, I was so scared. Oh, it was creepy." And I'm like, it's not scary to me or creepy. They're just ghosts. Like, they don't really bother me. I have panic attacks that are far worse than like dealing with a ghost. And I know not everybody believes in ghosts. If you don't believe this stuff, that's okay. They're just some cool stories for you to hear, right? So, it is Halloween after all. So my last story is about when I was pregnant with my daughter, that you guys know, Sinful Kit Kat. And I was with the father, and we were homeless. So I was pregnant with her and we were homeless. It was not a good situation. I was one of those pregnant women that just flew off the handle at everything, and I actually got banned from the shelter we were staying in. They like, just for the night. But of course, we were like, where are we gonna go? And on occasion, we would go sleep in a graveyard. I know that's like really weird, but graveyards have like nice, well-kept lawns. And there's usually some space somewhere that you can just lay down. And we weren't freaked out about, dead people or anything. So there's this graveyard nearby that behind all the tombstones and everything, there was this little hill, and behind this little hill, like a little hump of a hill, was a space with a tree, and it was nice. And so we would go back there, and we had like some blankets or whatnot. We went back there and we would sleep there. And this particular night when I got banned, we went and slept back there, and I woke up suddenly, and I sat straight up because I could hear this chattering, and it sounded like a woman, but I could not tell what she was saying. It was just like gibberish to me, because she was talking so fast, and I was frozen. Like even now I am a little creeped out. This story always kind of creeps me out. It gives me the chills. And I turned and I looked at my boyfriend at the time, and he looked at me and he was terrified. I could see it. Even though it was dark, we could see each other, and we were just like, what the? And his chattering got louder and louder and louder. And then all of a sudden, there was this bright white ball of light like in front of us. This happened. It was big, and it was just floating in front of us, and there was the chattering, and we were just like, holy crap. And we both like jumped up, started grabbing everything, and slept there for the night, which that's a whole nother story, which has nothing to do with ghosts. But anyways, so the next day I was talking to one of the people that worked at the shelter, and most of the people that worked there were pretty cool with me. We would talk about stuff, and this one guy I was kind of like a history buff of the area. He was really into like knowing stuff like that, and I told him about what happened, and he looked at me and he was like, what graveyard are we in? And I told him which one, and he was like, you were sleeping behind that little hill there? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, that's where all the dead babies are buried. I was like, what? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, back in the day when a baby was born, really early, it was like a miscarriage, but not really considered a miscarriage. They would just bury them like all in the same spot. They didn't like give them, names or whatever. They would just bury them in that spot. And then he told me there's also many sightings of this woman walking through that particular cemetery, and she'll just be walking, and they say that she's like got like a grayish blue dress on or whatever, and she just walks and like wails and talks and stuff to herself, and you just see her like walking around. And he said, and some people believe that she protects all the dead babies. And that's probably what was happening right then, is that she wanted you to leave because you were laying right there where they're buried. And I never went back to that cemetery again for any reason. I was completely freaked out by that. Like I said, I don't usually get scared or get all weirded out by ghost stories, but this particular time I was like done with that. So those are my ghost stories. I also wanted to let you guys know, one here, that I know you guys ask me questions about different products sometimes, and I don't get back to you right away. I do want to let you know that the bath bombs were I used the pumpkin one that was supposed, the jack-o'-lantern looking one. It did not smell like cinnamon. It smelled really nice. It smelled like a nice soap smell, very fresh kind of smell, but it didn't smell like cinnamon, which I actually was kind of happy about, because I was worried that there might be too much cinnamon oil in it, which cinnamon oil can sometimes be irritating to people's skin. So I was a little concerned about using it, but it was really nice, and it had a really nice scent to it. So we haven't used, my daughter used one of them too, I think the cotton candy one, and she really liked it, and it did smell like cotton candy. So there you go about those products, because I know some of you are probably still wondering about those. So yeah, and that is what I have for a story today. I hope you enjoyed our ghost stories. I hope you're having a really, really happy Halloween. And I think the next couple of videos coming up are going to be my October favorites and a small haul, I think. Well, not a small haul. Yeah, small haul. So, be chatting with you all soon. Bye-bye, kitty cats. And we were gone. We like took off out of there. So, hold on a second. John? John? What? What are you doing? Nope. So that was the end. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. Soda makes me burp.